Thank you, thank you. It's been awesome. It's been such a privilege to be here. Love the spirit of this house. God's here. His presence is so here, and it's beautiful. And I think we saw that so strong last night. How His spirit just moved where His people gather, and I love it. And my name is Chris, the worship pastor at the Mission Church. I'm originally from Queens, New York, and my family moved up to where the Mission Church is in 2003. So I've personally been there since that age, 2003. Now I'm working there full time on staff as a worship pastor, and it's been awesome. It's been a journey. Definitely been some challenging things along the way. I think worship teams and worship leaders, musicians, production, y'all can attest to that for sure. When no one comes, or you're missing a drummer, or whatever the case might be, we've all have gone through those things. And so a little bit, my responsibility, just to kind of give you an eye into what I do from week to week. My responsibility, I oversee our worship department as well as our production department. So in our worship, our church has services on Sunday. So we have a 9 and 11, 2 services, an hour and a half. And then we have a midweek service, 7 o'clock to 8:15. And then Friday night, we have our youth service from 7 to 10. So every service has a worship team. So I oversee making sure that those teams and those slots are filled, as well as our production. So our production, we have our sound. We have someone doing graphics and lights. And then we have someone now doing live stream, and then someone that does the sound for live stream. So my job is to make sure all those slots are filled and that everyone knows exactly what needs to happen for those days. So I love it. It's a great opportunity for me to develop my administration skills, it's great. It's great. So that's kind of what we do. That's what I do. And there's definitely, like I said, been a few things that we've learned along the way. And I wanted to just share some of those things and thoughts with you and just kind of talk about leadership within the worship ministry. And I think Pastor Greg set it up so well, just talking about leadership 101, what that looks like. So I want to kind of touch a little bit deeper specifically into the worship ministry. So this is going to be really practical. I'm going to give you guys some resources that we use that are really helpful for us, some programs that we use, some systems that we use to help you potentially grow your team and to help facilitate your team, right? Because how many know we need to facilitate our team well? We really do. And worship, it's so important. Amen? Like, we know that, right? Worship is so important. Like, we were created to worship. Like, that's who we are, right? And how we facilitate that is crucial. It's so crucial. If you really think about it, almost half of your church service is worship, right? Like, if we really think about it, like for us, we have about 20 to 25 minutes on every Sunday, right? So it's like almost half of your service is worship, right? So we got to really dig into how we facilitate it. On the spiritual aspect, for sure, but and also in the practicalities and the technicalities, right? Because there's a lot that we don't see that goes into what we see in a service. Do you know what I mean? And I think when we go into churches sometimes, and we see production, we see lights, and we see the worship team. And sometimes we think, man, they may make it look so easy sometimes, right? But you got to understand that there's so much that goes in behind the scenes of rehearsals, of making sure everyone knows the songs, making sure people come on time, making sure people come prepared, right? There's a lot of things that we don't see with the sound, making sure there's sound checks, right? There's a whole bunch of things. Graphics, making sure we have the right words. Graphics, I just want to say, graphics is probably one of the most important elements in a church service, because if there are no lyrics, no one will sing unless they know the song by heart, which is a rare occasion, right? So we got to really understand that every aspect of what we see is crucial. It doesn't all fall on the person that's holding the microphone, that's leading the worship service, but that behind that is a force and a team that is facilitating an atmosphere where people can encounter the presence of God. I don't know if you never heard this saying before, but you never get a second chance to make a first impression, right? And when you really think about it, worship is that first impression. When people come into the service, most churches start off with what? With worship, right? And it's just like when you meet someone, the first impression is going to kind of maybe taint, right? Or maybe enforce whatever that you felt in that first impression. So I think it's so important that we realize that when people come in, like Pastor Greg was saying, we have no idea. None. No idea. Some of us, we have relationships with people and we know. But I would say majority of the time, we have no idea what people are going through. We don't. We really don't. And I love what he was saying is if we can just pull back everything and see the pain and see the hurt and see all those things, it would really give us eyes to see, okay, like we gotta show up ready, right? We gotta show up ready. We gotta be prayed up. We gotta practice up, right? We gotta get our sound check up. We gotta make sure this environment is conducive so that God can move with no distraction, right? Because once we leave this place, we are all, worship team included, we're gonna get hit with everything, right? And we gotta have a place where people can come, they can turn their phones off. Right? Our phone just keeps going off, right? Our emails keep pinging, right? It's just keeps going. We got to create an environment where people can come, people can receive and connect. That's our goal. Our goal for us is to help people see how good God is and to help them initiate an expressive response of worship to the Father, right? Why expressive? Because the Word of God, it commands us. If we look in 2 Samuel, David danced before the Lord with all his might. Right? Even says he got undignified and danced naked. I'm not saying we're going to do that. You know what I mean? But just the fact that he danced before the Lord, right? Psalm 47, clap your hands, all people. Shout to God with loud songs of joy, for the Lord Most High is to be feared, right? Clap your hands, shout for joy. Like, when we say, let's clap our hands and give him praise, when we say, come on, let's give God a shout, we're not just saying that to fill space. We're actually following what the Word of God says in that we need to clap our hands, right? Because he's worthy of it. He deserves it, right? The Most High, he's to be feared. He's the King. And I think we have to, as worship teams, we got to understand that when we are serving up here, it can't just be about me and him, right? This is my time. This is my time right now. God, I need to connect with you. And there's an element of truth there, yes. Like we as worship teams and musicians, like we gotta connect with God, absolutely. But having the mindset of we're here to serve them. So as a worship leader, I'm always thinking, how do I get them to come with me on where I'm trying to go? Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes we could just make it real personal, and that's okay. But when you're up here, you have a lot of people that, some of them feel uncomfortable singing. Like, let's just get real practical, right? A lot of people feel uncomfortable singing. They don't know why we lift our hands, And I think we got to have that mindset of never assume that people know what you're talking about sometimes. Because we can say, let's lift our hands or come on, let's shout. But, if there's no teaching, if there's no direction of why, it can just be empty worship, the form of godliness, but denying its power. And I think as a worship team, we got to understand and have that mindset that not everyone's going to know what you're talking about. Not everyone's going to know why we're here. Not everyone's going to know why are we singing. What does that mean, right? Leave the 99 for the one. Who's the 99? Do you know what I mean? Like it's those elements that sometimes we as worship teams and church people, we can kind of just, it's like, oh yeah, but understanding that there's a lot of people that are still trying to figure this thing out and figure out who God is. And we have the privilege of showing them through the element of worship. Does that make sense? So be aware of who's in the room. Never assume, right? Another thing, look at your song choice. What is the culture of your church, right? You know, for us, like, I know that there's certain songs that will resonate with our church just because I know our church culture and, you know. And for us, like, I know that singing on a Sunday morning at 9 a.m., you know, Hillsong Young and Free might not work. You know what I mean? Where it's just like boom, 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 right? Like, I know our demographic. I know where, you know what I mean? And I think it's important as worship teams as well to think about your songs, you know, and not just pick songs because it's, you know, a hit on K-Love or whatnot, but, you know, dig into lyrics. Dig into the lyrics. Look at the words of the songs. Look at the way that it flows dynamically and think about your church. Like when you're picking set lists, right, you're bringing people on a journey, right? You're showing who God is, and you want to be able to make a way for people to just easily just enter in. And that really comes down to what your song choices are, right? So that's one practical thing. Look at your song choice. Look at your song choice. Our goal, again, is to create a place where people can connect with him, right? That's our goal. And you know what's amazing is that a lot of times we think that it's just the vocalist or the worship leader that's going to do that. But I've been in services where when I look over and I see the drummer singing, or when I see the bass player lifting their hands, or when I see the graphics person with a hand lifted, and the production guy that's doing sound, like his eyes are closed, he knows what he's doing, like he's aware, right? We don't just want, you know what I mean? Like, microphone, right? We're aware, we understand our role, but there's moments where you just, like, I remember, like, going to services and seeing not just the worship leader, not just the person that's expected to lead, but when you see, like, the band behind them and they're in it, wow, that does something. Because you know what? The drummer's going to reach a certain demographic of people that I can't reach, right? That person's going to reach a certain demographic, whether it's their age, where they come from, whatever. I'm able to reach a certain group. This person's able to reach a certain group. And if all of us had that mindset of, no, like, I'm going to help lead them. I'm leading my group of people. Something happens in the room, and it's contagious. And before you know it, you have a room filled with people that are just in awe of who God is. Again, we're bringing people on that journey, right? The byproduct that we see on Sunday, the product that we see on Sunday is a byproduct of what occurs before the service. It really is. Everything. We talked about that, right? So really quickly in this session, we're going to talk about 3 ways to help us cultivate a culture that can produce team growth, 3 ways that can produce quality. A lot of times we think that, we need more people, more, right? And I'm learning, because I've prayed that, God, bring them. You know what I mean? And I feel like sometimes, like, God is like, hey, but you need to mind the goal that you have now, right? You need to mind the goal that you have now. Because, I'm at the point where, like, I want quality more than I want quantity. Because you could have a lot of people, and it could be a hot mess. Do you know what I mean? And if we can't handle what we got now, there's no way that we're going to handle the more that come, right? Be faithful with the little, right? And then you'll be faithful with much. So it's real important that we understand that sometimes we can get caught up in that thought of, if we had more people, then the problem will be solved. And that's not necessarily true. Mind what you have now. Do your best with what you have now. Mine it. And I trust that God's going to bring the right people. The right people. Amen? The right people. So team growth, quality, and a deeper understanding of why we do what we do, right? Because we have to have a purpose behind why we're up here, right? There needs to be a why behind the what. All right? Does that make sense? So 3 quick things to help cultivate that culture. Number 1, and worship leadership, cultivate team mindset. Team mindset. Instead of the I, turning it to the we mentality, right? And I think this is so huge because sometimes we put too much on the worship leader and not understanding, like I said earlier, there's a whole team involved. And if your whole team is not on the same page, if your whole team doesn't have that chemistry of relationship where we like each other, right? Like, I know this is really basic, but like, do we like each other? Right? You know, I love you, but I don't like you. You know what I mean? Like, do we like each other? You know, because the worst thing is serving with someone that you have a bitterness towards. How can God move through that? Or when there's, us, the worship team versus the sound team. You know what I'm talking about? Y'all ever seen that? Where it's just like, there's this unspoken war with the worship team and the production team. You know, it's like this tension. And it's just like when there's that underlying tension that no one talks about, that no one addresses, people leave, right? You can't hold on to people. People get bitter. People they lose the perspective of why we're here. Why we're here. And we need, as worship leaders and as musicians in production, we need to understand that we're on the same team. Like, we need to understand that, listen, production, my goodness, is, I would say, one of the most important elements in the service. I would say probably the most important element in the service. Because y'all can be killing it up here. But if the mics aren't on, if the mix is unbalanced, if there's feedback, you can have the most amazing singers, the most amazing musicians, but if it's not being produced from the back, it's going to be real distracting, right? It will. And the thing is, we got to understand that we are a team. We are a team, right? And something that we do practically to kind of enforce that is we have something called team nights. So we get our whole team together. So we get our production team, we get our worship team, and it's like once a quarter, and we meet at my parents' house because me and my wife's apartment is too small. And we meet at my parents' house, and we just eat food. We break bread. Right? I get to be able to like talk to them without the pressure of Sunday morning. Do you know what I mean? I get to see where they're at. I get to know what they're struggling with. I get to have a conversation, right? With no pressure of, well, we got sound check. I'll pray for you. Yeah, we got sound check. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it's so important. I think that's something that we can miss. Because it's like, okay, like, we meet every rehearsal, or we meet on Sundays. And I know that our schedules are crazy. I know. I get it. But even if it's like once every 4 months or whatnot, that you have the whole team together, I think the more that you get the whole team together, the more that you're going to develop that culture of it's a team. It's not us versus them, right? It's a matter of us being all together and understand that we're trying to accomplish the same goal here, right? So that's something practically that I would do. Another thing that we do practically is this is something new that we've been doing. It's called team building workshops. So we kind of get more in depth of the individual elements of what you see and what you hear, right? So, we have rehearsals on Thursdays from 7 to 9. And it's like a once a quarter thing where we get our whole team. We have a choir, so we get our choir together. We get our vocals together. We get our production live stream. We get them all together. And, from like 7 to 7:30, I share with them the word of just reminding them of the purpose of why they're there. And I think we as leaders, we need to continually do this. Like, we need to, and I know that sometimes for me, I'm like, oh, man, I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over. But, like, it's just such a good reminder of reminding this is why we're here. we're here to serve people. We're here to love on people. We're here to show Jesus to people. This is the purpose of why God has given us these abilities, right? I think that message should always be taught and taught and taught to your teams, because we can get so caught up in the technicalities of everything, right? I've been there where I'm leading worship sometimes, and my mind is racing of, this section of that section, or, man, I got to have, and it's like sometimes you can miss the moment. And you got to remind your team, remind yourself, like, God, I'm here for you. This is why I'm here. Purpose, why we do what we do. And after that, we break off into different workshops. So drummers go with drummers, guitarists go with guitarists, and we just kind of dive in. Production, I'll get some people to come in and help train our guys on sound checks, on gain structures, on EQ. We'll talk to our graphics coordinator and get workshops going. Like, we want to build, we want to show our team that we value them. Amen? Like, our team needs to feel that they are valued, right? So as much as you can, get your team together and talk about it. Talk about ways like, how can we do that practically? How can we develop our musicianship practically? Like, maybe for you, it's like getting lessons, whatever it might look like, even talking to different churches. You know how many churches I call? Listen, I'll call the big ones too. Elevation, Bethel, I'll call them, right? And the thing is, they answer. You know what I mean? And I think it's important, like, never underestimate what we have now in this day and age. Do you know what I mean? Like, information is at our fingertips. And there's churches out there that actually want to help. They want to help. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call, network, and get ideas of, how do you guys do it? Like, I noticed that you do this. I see this on social media. I see your production quality. Like, what are some steps? Listen, I've had those conversations, and they've been so good, so good. It gives you, like, it even refreshes your spirit and gives you hope. So never be afraid to pick up the phone and make some phone calls and put in the work, because that's what excellence is. Right? Consistent work ethic. All right? Relationships, it's key. Team mindset. Right? Let's move on. Number 2, I touched on it a little bit. So 1, cultivate that team mindset. We mentality. We got to do, we served. We had a great service. Right? We mentality. Number 2, cultivate excellence. Cultivate excellence. Right? Excellence is a consistent work ethic toward the upper range of your ability. That's what it is. It's a consistent work ethic toward the upper range of your ability, right? It's not perfection, right? Because that can really cripple us, right? We'll always, if we strive for perfection, we will always leave the platform, we'll always leave the sound booth saying, man, that was terrible. We will, because we're our worst critics, right? But excellence is a different breed. It's a mindset. It's consistent work ethic, right? Pastor Greg said yesterday, opportunity, it's provoked. What is it provoked by? Excellence. Excellence. And the thing is, people, when they come in, they need a sense of consistency in order to go somewhere with you for the long haul. When people come in, there needs to be a comfort in knowing that the band knows what's happening, right? There needs to be a sense of security knowing that the mics are going to work, that the sound is going to be where it needs to be, that the lyrics are going to be on screen, right? Because, again, there are so many people that need to come in here knowing that we have a church that are here to serve you with our best, with our very best. And the thing about excellence is that it builds trust, right? Like Pastor Greg said in this earlier sermon, when people want to sow into your church, right, they need to trust it. They need to see that things are working and functioning, right? And it's the same with worship. When people come in, they need to have that sense of trust and consistency. And practically that looks like excellence, right? Because people want to be a part of something that is a good product. I mean, look at Apple. I guarantee you more than 50% of y'all have an Apple product. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they're killing it. And it's just like their product is a great product, and people want to be a part of it, you know? And I'm not trying to, like, I hope you hear my heart, and I'm not trying to make it sound like, you know, worship is a product or anything like that. But having the mindset of, listen, when God gave instructions to build the tabernacle. It wasn't just like, here go build a tabernacle. Do you know what I mean? There was measurements, there was materials. Like, how many have skipped over that section? You know what I mean? Let's be honest. It's just like all these different measurements and root and all these things. Why? Why? Because he's holy. He's a perfect God. He never fails. So why wouldn't I give my very best? Why wouldn't I show up to rehearsal prepared? Why? Why wouldn't I come ready spiritually and technically? Why? He deserves it, right? He deserves it. So there's a couple resources that we use that are super helpful for us. I was talking to Brandon a little bit about what you guys use. So yeah, I want to share with you just some like practical things that we do that really has really helped us. So one resource that we use is called Planning Center Online. Not sure if you've ever heard of this resource before, but it's pretty much an online scheduling system. And it's amazing. It's super organized. You can attach YouTube links, the set list, chord charts, attachments. Your media can sync up to Planning Center. Your production can sync up to Planning Center. It's such a universal tool that we use to schedule and roster our team, because the struggle's real. Before we used it, we were shooting off emails, and it was good. But then, like, you would have someone that says, yes, I'm coming, but then Sunday morning, it's like, where are they? You know what I mean? Or you're not sure if someone has confirmed or declined, and this resource really, it makes it plain as day. I wish I could show you. But if you want to look into more detail of it, come see me afterwards. I can show you what it looks like, just the templates and everything like that. But pretty much how it works is you get sent a notification if you're rostered, and you can either accept or decline, and then you get, as the admin, you get a notification of that immediately. So you can sync that up to your phones. And the really cool feature is that when you decline, you have to give a reason why, which is really fun. Really fun. So a lot of people won't decline just because they know there's a reason that you have to put there. I'm just kidding. But seriously, it's pretty awesome. So that's one resource that we use, Planning Center Online. You can check it out. They have different plans. I think the first plan is like $9.99 a month or something like that. It's an incredible program. It really is. And you're even able to label, different service events. So, for example, this weekend you could have an event, night of worship. All the people that are rostered, all the schedules, all the chord charts, all the YouTube links for that event. Next event, Sunday morning. You can create templates. Incredible resource. Highly suggest it. Another thing that we've been using, that we just started using, is Worship Online. I'm not sure if you ever heard of that. Worship Online. Amazing product. It literally shows you, and this is for musicians and vocalists, it literally, the song, you type it in, and then there's literally a camera showing the person playing the song with the chord charts, with the where he's playing on the guitar. It's incredible. Because we were having a challenge, because all these songs, they have certain parts in them that are like integral to the song. Do you know what I mean? And we were finding that rehearsals, it was really hard for people to pick out what those parts were, just because there's so much in the actual mix that it's hard to decipher even vocal parts. And what's cool about this product that we started using is that it shows you the musicianship side, but it also shows you the vocal parts. So you have someone singing tenor, alto, soprano, and you have literally someone there, and they're showing you, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to sing this part, and then you can jump in. It's incredible program. So I would check it out. There's also a subscription to it as well. Planning Center, Worship Online. Those are the main two that we use. And the thing that's great about that is that when you invest in your team, it pays, Because sometimes we can get frustrated. Why aren't they learning their parts? Or how come they don't know this? And maybe it's not so much that they don't want to. It's just they don't know how. If we really, like what Pastor Greg said, we got all volunteers. Everybody. Our production worship team, everybody's a volunteer, right? And we got to understand, like, they got day-to-day work. They got kids. They got family. And I think as leaders, we need to understand that and be sensitive to that. You know what I mean? And we want to be able to equip them to the best of what they can achieve. And when you say your team, hey, listen, I'm putting finances down so you can learn your parts. I'm putting finances down so we can get our scheduling in place, so we can get our sound check in place. When you start doing that, they feel valued, and they actually want to get better. They do. So it really takes just you making that decision of, all right, like, let's look at what we can do for our team this year. Let's invest into our team. Bringing people in to train, I think, is also another thing you can do as well, right, to really help. So cultivate excellence, right? So number 1 was cultivate team. Number 2, cultivate excellence. And then number 3, one thing that's really helpful is cultivate systems. Cultivate systems. So some of the things that we do as a team, for our worship team, some of the systems that we do is we have auditions. So I'm not sure how you guys do it or whatnot, but I know that that's like a scary word in church. Auditions. You know what I mean? And I think it's really important, because not only does it show the quality of where that person is at, but it also shows the motive of why they want to join. And I'll give you an example. So we did an audition maybe a month or so ago, and we had this vocalist that was awesome. We gave her the criteria. You know, we have an email, so if you want to audition, you come see me, or you can send an email, and then I'll get in contact with you. I'll send you our criteria. You know, here's the song that we want you to sing, and then what's expected. Again, we want to set them up for a win as best as we can, right? So we give them the material. We give them at least a month to prepare, and then they come, they do an in-person audition, and we go from there. So this person came in, and fantastic, was great vocalist, nailed the parts, did the harmony, you know. So this person was fairly new, and we wanted to, you know, slowly get her involved in the worship team, right? And one side note, I think it's real important as well to take your time. And I think the temptation is when we see someone really talented, we want to give them the mic, or we want to throw them into ministry. And I've learned that sometimes you just got to take your time with people, because over time you can see the motives, you can see where they're at spiritually. And like Pastor Jared said, the most gifted people are the most headaches sometimes. And it's so sad, but that's the reality. And I think we just got to take our time and trust God. Trust that God's going to do what he always does. He's going to work it out. You know what I mean? So with this person, you know, it's like, yeah, this person could sing, you know, and instead of being like, you're rostered, next Sunday you're going to lead, right? We're like, okay, let's like hold up. All right, so we talk to the person, we say, this audition was great. You did an amazing job. So we want to start getting you involved in knowing who the team is. We want to start getting you involved in just knowing our worship team culture, and we want you to serve on the choir. And as soon as we said choir, the whole demeanor just changed. And it was interesting, because first of all, choir is awesome. Love the choir. The choir, let me tell you something about choir. Choir is probably one of the most powerful elements on stage, because everyone can relate to them. Everyone really can. Because when people come in, a lot of them, everyone's not a drummer. Everyone's not a guitar player. Do you know what I mean? So when they see a choir, like a mass mob of people, I could do that. Yeah, I could sing. Yeah, because I could do that. And that's the thing. That's where people are, and we got to remember that. So go back to the story. Demeanor changed, right? And it showed us, like, okay, number one, we got to keep doing this more, right? And number two, it shows the motives of people where they're at, you know? And auditions are, you know, and again, I remember when I first introduced it, oh, man, it was scary. Like, people were scared and all that, like, you know? But I think it's such a great filter. It really is. It's such a great filter. Because here's the thing. You want to plug people into where they're going to really flourish. As a leader, I want to plug you into the outlet where you're going to produce the most power. And a lot of times, being on platform, it might not be the greatest outlet for you. And the thing is, that's okay. Not everyone's meant to be a singer. Not everyone's meant to be a musician. How about we plug you into somewhere where you can actually reach your full potential? That's the heart of auditions. It really is. It's not about hitting the X button, you're out. Do you know what I mean? That's not what it's about. Really isn't. And I think that when we hear that, maybe we've been hurt by it. You know what I mean? Maybe we've seen it done poorly. But having that heart and saying, this is what it's really about. We want to plug you into where you're really going to flourish, right? So that's the heart of auditions. We also do evaluations. So what that looks like is for our current team, we're always challenging our team. Y'all got to grow. You know what I mean? Just because you made the team doesn't mean you can stay there skill-wise. You have to keep growing. You have to keep mining the craft that God has given you, right? We're to play excellently before him, right? So we got to continue mining the gift that God has given us. It's our responsibility, right? So we do something called evaluations where, we give our vocalist criteria, we give our band criteria, we say, hey, these are the songs that we want you to rehearse and practice, and, we'll throw some challenging songs in there, to see where they're at, and to kind of just, even for them, to see, okay, this is where I'm at, and this is where I want to be, right? And again, it all comes back to excellence. Like, you're just cultivating that culture of, we can't stay where we're at. We got to grow. We got to grow because he deserves it, and we want to represent him with the best of our ability, right? So we do evaluations. One thing that we also do is, again, this is really practical. One thing we also do is we have like a team covenant sheet, like a team commitment that just kind of outlines the expectations of what it looks like to be on the team. And I think this is really important because if there are no clear expectations, you're going to be frustrated as a leader, right? You will. You will. And a lot of times, word of mouth, you know what I mean? It doesn't go far, right? So when you have a document that outlines, okay, this is our vision as a worship team and production team. This is what's expected, right? So when someone makes an audition, right, we give them, okay, this is what it looks like to be on the team, right? You have to come to rehearsals, right? So our rehearsals on Thursdays, we start at 7, we end at 9. It's expected that you're here on Sunday morning, right? When you're rostered and when you're not, right? This is what it looks like. Being here for both services, right? So things like that. Dress code. These are our expectations. That's my favorite topic. Dress code. It's not. I hate it. I hate talking about dress code, right? All these expectations, right? And it's important so that you can give a clear expectation to the people that want to join your team. Because they need direction. They need to know what the commitment is. Because, listen, this is a commitment, right? Being back there, it's a commitment. It really is. It really is. And you need to be able to outline that and show people, listen, like, this isn't a small task, and we understand that, right? This is our role, and we want to give you the opportunity to look at what these expectations are, and let's talk that through, okay? One thing that we do, and this is just a vision of our church, proclaiming Christ, training disciples, and raising leaders, right? So that's our vision. That's what we do, right? So one of the things that we do as a worship team is, and I think it's really important for us, is to delegate responsibilities. And I think sometimes we can hold on because we don't want people to mess up and they don't do it like us. Like for me, like that was something that, and is today, that I struggle with releasing, like here, like this is, and it's hard because I know how I want the wires wired. I know how I want the microphone set up. Like I have a system in my head, but if I just leave that to me, how am I developing people? How am I leading people? And the thing is, you got to ask yourself the hard question. If for some reason I couldn't show up on a Sunday, would everything crumble? Do you know what I mean? It's a hard question. If I didn't show up for whatever reason, I got a flat tire, I can't make it, guys, Will the team be like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Do you know what I mean? What are we going to do? Right? But getting to the point where the team can be like, no, all right, we got this person to lead. Everything's set up. Our system was in place, so everyone knows the procedures of how we do things and run things, right? People have taken that responsibility. We could run it. And you got to ask yourself the hard question. If I didn't show up, what would happen? What would happen? Right? So what we do is, we have a vocal and choir director, and she oversees our vocalists. So she works with them. We even wrote out a expectation of what her job role looks like. And I think that's important because it also enforces, it shows them that this is serious. That this isn't just like, hey, can you be our vocal choir director? Cool. No, but having a sit down and saying, hey, this is our expectations. This is what we're in need of. This is what we want to show you. And this is what we're hopefully wanting you to show our team. So we wrote down some just expectations of what your role would look like. Look it over and see if this is something that you can do. That's what we did. And she does it, and she's amazing at it. She runs our choir, and it's like, for me, that takes a load off. You know what I mean? It allows me as a leader to dream and to see where we got to go. You know what I mean? And not be so micromanaging in the small print. And that also allows people to really develop into the leader God has called them to be, which is awesome. We also have someone on our team that he oversees, he sends out the rosters, he sends out the schedule, right? So every week, we like to give our schedule at least a month in advance, just because we know that people got schedules and life and jobs, so we like to give them as much ahead of a time, as possible, so that they know, okay, I'm scheduled, can I make it work, etc. So what he does is he sends out the schedules, and then, we look it over together. We want to plug in people, intentionally so they can grow. Maybe it's a new worship leader or a new musician, right? So we talk that through. We look it over together. So he kind of sends the template out, and then I look it over and switch some things here and there, and then we send it out to the team. And that alone takes another load off, and it allows me to see the team in a more bigger picture. And again, it empowers someone on our team to lead, which is awesome, which is really a fantastic thing. So look at your systems. Evaluate, even coming in, having the mindset of, okay, when I come in, I'm going to put myself in a normal congregant that just comes in on a Sunday. What do I see? What do I hear? Do I notice this? Do I notice that? Right? It's really, really important. Look at your systems. What does your sound checks look like? What are your call times? Right? What are your graphics look like? All those things. Are we, during rehearsal, are we trying to figure things out, or are things ready to go? As a leader, we need to look at those things and see, okay, how can we improve this? How can we get better in this? How can our rehearsal times be more productive? How can our sound checks be more productive? How can we delegate more responsibility to someone for them to lead instead of me having to all the time, right? Do it as much as possible. And yes, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable letting go, right? But man, when you let go, when you entrust someone, man, the reward, it's awesome. And I think sometimes we're waiting, we have to wait, but sometimes we can wait too long, right? And I think it's important to see, notice, for me, when I'm looking for someone when I want to give someone more responsibility on our worship team or production team, I'm not necessarily looking at how well they perform on a Sunday. I'm looking at, number one, is this person on time? Number two, does this person come prepared, knowing their parts? Number three, does this person demonstrate the attitude of whatever needs to be done, I'm going to do it, right? It's looking beyond what people see on the outside and seeing the character that lies within, right? So for us, we have this young man that is he's just a workhorse. He's a teenager, and you ask him to do something like, hey man, can you grab 4 wires? No attitude, just does the job, gets it done. Does things without even me asking, making sure the wires are neat, making sure, those are the things and the qualities you want to look for when you're wanting to give someone responsibility, right? Because if they can wrap wires, right? Without you telling them, if they can get the gaff tape to make sure the stage is nice, if they can make sure that people got their notes, right? Without you telling, those are indicators that, hey, this person might be ready for something, right? So that's what you want to look for when you're developing people and giving them responsibility, alrighty? So 1, cultivate team. 2, cultivate excellence. And 3, cultivate systems. So that is me for today. So really quick before we end, I just want to encourage you, be faithful. Just be faithful. Be faithful. Well, how many people you have, whatever the case might be, whatever frustrations you have, listen, I've been there. I've been there where I've sat there and I'm like, man, like, is this really going to work out? Like, God, are you sure? You know, like, I've had that conversation, Pastor Greg. I had it. You know? Am I supposed to be here? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, those conversations the enemy will like to plant in your mind when things aren't going right, right? But you have to learn how to encourage your soul. Encourage your soul and trusting that God is faithful. And if he's called you to where you're at, he's going to see you through it. And a lot of times, I'm telling you, like, the people that have come up to our team, it's just us being faithful. Us being faithful. Like, and, you know, we hear the stories of men, like, you know, the person, you know, like, for us, like, we, you know, we're still developing our sound. We are. You know, we have meetings with our sound guy. I talked to Pastor Greg about our sound. Like, we're trying to develop that and grow that, you know? And it's challenging, especially when you have a team of volunteers, right? It's challenging. But you have to be able to be faithful and even pray. Do you guys, even praying for what you need, because he hears us, right? So, Father, you know, my prayer, like when I'm praying for, I've prayed prayers. God, give our sound guys wisdom. Give them the ability to hear what needs to be heard. Give them the ability to know what needs to be mixed. And it works. Like, we can't underestimate prayer. Like, I've talked to Sandy. Like, there was one Thursday night where that Thursday morning I prayed, God, let the sound man hear what needs to be heard. Like, do it, God. Let it just be not so much about being sound good, but understanding that there's power in the mix. There really is, right? So when understanding that, praying that, and that Thursday night, I remember going to rehearsal, and the sound sounded really good. I'm telling you, like I wish it really works. It really does. Like, prayer works, you know. So be faithful, and trust that he's gonna see you through it, no matter what your circumstance is, right? And pray. Don't underestimate prayer, because he's here. And he hears and he sees and he wants to help. But we got to ask him. Amen? Amen. That's it for me today.